So I came across this story recently about a young lady who apostatized, or at least became very disillusioned with the church because of how she saw other people acting in the church. And I make this video today because I know that that can oftentimes be a big point of contention for a lot of people. They do see a lot of hypocrisy in the church. You know, they see a lot of people acting, saying one way, saying one thing, living another. And I understand that. I've been guilty of that somewhat myself. But I'd like to encourage everybody that, it doesn't matter what anyone believes, whether we're Christian or not. We're all going to make mistakes, and one thing that I've learned is not to really, this might sound a bit sideways, is not to really pay attention to how other people, we're all works in progress. We're all at different points in our walk, I've said it in past videos, Christianity is about a person, and I need to focus on Jesus. I need to focus on the person. If I put my attention on other people in the church, other fallible people in the church, you know what? I am going to get discouraged. And historically, I have enough discouragement in my life, right? I mean, if anything, and this is really a place of some really good spiritual maturity. Hopefully most of us can get there eventually, but where I can, instead of actually being discouraged by how others act or how they talk or, however they conduct themselves, actually get to a point where we can then encourage them. We can lift them up and correct and guide them in a loving, gracious way. I remember this story a lot. I can't even remember who the person was. It was, I don't know, must have been 20 years ago, maybe longer, but there was this Christian rock and roll artist who, same thing, he left the faith because he talked about how he would tour with other Christian rock bands and he just saw so much hypocrisy behind the scenes. And my heart goes out to anybody who deals with that. I mean, it can be rough. There's no question about that. It can be, it can definitely raise some concerns in our heads. I would just encourage people that, to put it as directly as possible, we have to be able to look past that. Like people are people. I mean, I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Nobody's going to live the Christian life perfectly. Not by a long shot. And one thing I learned a long time ago, and I was reading actually one of C.S. Lewis's books, but in a nutshell, it's, someone who comes to Christ, maybe when they come to Christ, in their secular life, they were just a complete monster. And they come to Christ and, they simply go from becoming a monster and they get elevated up to being a jerk, if that makes sense, Now again, I mean, hopefully we all continue to grow in the faith. The thing is, though, my point being is that when we see other people, the behavior we see, as ugly as it may be, that might actually be the improvement. That might be the improvement. Who's to say a year ago or before they came to Christ, who's to say they weren't 10 times worse? So instead of being disheartened and doubting and, and doing all these mental gymnastics about how other people act in the church, right? We can learn from that. Like I said, we could encourage them. We could lift them up and edify them. But again, it's, the church is not a museum for good people. It's a hospital for sick people. So I would encourage people, keep your focus on Christ, not other people, And it's okay to leave a church. I mean, if they, maybe if the church starts pushing a questionable doctrine or what have you, I mean, it's, it's okay to think for ourselves, right? It doesn't mean we don't have to be a doormat. We don't have to, in fact, when there are public sins, and there is a difference between a private struggle and a public sin, there's even a 3-step process Scripture gives us for dealing with, the bigger issues. But whether, for big or small, whatever we see going on, right, we're all a work in progress. All of us, me, you, everybody. So please, I implore everyone, please don't get discouraged because, folks, we are hypocrites. We're a lot of things. we're fallible human beings, and we've got a lot of defects. We have a lot of assets too. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to leave out the positive. You know, so it's important to remember that. You know, it's okay to have disagreements. It's okay. We're gonna see nonsense once in a while. You know, but again, you know, we keep our focus on the King, not the person in the pew sitting next to us, not even the pastor, right? Not to diminish anybody. Again, though, you know, Jesus is the author and finisher of our faith, right? Not the people around us. So I hope that helps. God bless and take care.